Crowbox. First of all, I'm Roger. I'm the founder of Crowbox, and I'm very excited to host this webinar. We have some great guests and quite a lot to cover for today. The funny thing is, I was yesterday at a conference, leadership conference, about discussing the changes that are currently happening. And one of the key takeaways is that, especially in the last 2.5 years, a lot of things are currently changing, and on many different levels, from a political point of view, economical, social, and of course, this has also its impact on the e-commerce industry and also specifically on the sports and activewear space. The question in all of this, of course, is as a digital leader or someone who's working in a digital environment, how do you win and how do you act in this new environment? So this is actually what I would like to cover today. But maybe first of all, let me give a first introduction to our guests. As mentioned, I'm Roger. I'm the CEO and founder of Crowbox. We're a product discovery platform in the e-commerce space. And I have 3 great guests. I'll let them introduce them by themselves, kicking off with Miriam.
Hey, hi. So I'm Miriam. I'm Senior Manager e-commerce for Puma Europe, for category management actually. So I'm taking care of the performance sports on Puma.com. On the one hand side running, but also training, as well as motorsports and team sports. I'm looking forward to this webinar. Handing over to Martin then.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Hello, my name is Martin. I'm a director of e-commerce for a company, Top4Sport. We are part of German 11 team sports group, so we are very happy to be part of this very strong group in our market. And we are operating several banners, all of them focused on a different sport. So this could be 11 team sports banners or e-shops across CEE and France and Spain. But then we also operate Top4 Running. It's always Top 4 as the number and running across, I think, 22 countries at the moment. Top4 Fitness in the same area. And recently we have launched We Play Basketball, We Play Volleyball, and We Play Handball in the CEE region. So it's quite a lot of e-shops to handle. And apart from that, we also have divisions which focus on team sales, on brick and mortar stores, on marketplaces and franchises. So it's a kind of a big area to handle. Already we are somewhere around 100 e-shops going live. So that's a lot of things to look at. And also my position in the company is to somehow promote data-driven management and basically using data to run our daily operations. So that's also part of my focus. And I can hand over to Adrian.
Thanks, Martin. Hi, morning, everybody. Adrian Pritchard. I'm responsible for all the e-com and digital transformation across our head business sites. So that is head.com. And under head.com, we have racket sports. So we have paddle, we have tennis, we have squash, we have pickleball and racquetball. And then we have winter sports, which is skiing and snowboarding. And then we also have protection gear in there as well, such as goggles and helmets. And then we also have sportswear as well. So that's summer sports and winter sports. As well as head.com, we have maris.com. Maris is our diving brand that operates globally. And then we have Zogs, which is our swimming brand, and they operate in the UK and Australia. And then we have Tyrolia, and they're looking after all the bindings that go on the skis as well. So operating globally, responsible for 36 markets globally.
Thanks, everyone. I believe we have a great wealth of a lot of experience joining the webinar. And again, thanks for joining. As I mentioned, we've got quite a lot of things to cover. And what I would like to do today is basically break this up in 3 pieces. As mentioned, there are some big shifts happening currently in the activewear space, but also in the broader digital space and e-commerce environment. which I would like to cover as the main trends. Then I would like to dive in specifically a little bit deeper into the privacy revolution, or more the trend towards zero-party data, as this is, in our opinion, a piece of the puzzle that is actually not getting enough attention, while it's going to disrupt and change the industry as a whole. To summarize, basically what I would like to do is then show a few examples on how do you adapt in this new environment. And again, we have some great guests joining, so I would like to pick their brain and also hear more about their experiences. The impact of the pandemic has been long-lasting in many different aspects. Commerce has changed, consumer behavior has changed, sustainability and the search for sustainable products has become more relevant. So what I would like to cover is, let's have a brief look at all the things that are currently shifting in this industry. And I would like to kick off with a quote from David. David is the founder of On Running, a running sports brand, where he mentioned that the boundaries between life, work, and sports have become more flexible. The pandemic lasted long enough to form new habits. We believe that this new reality is here to stay. Well, I think we're already 2.5 years down the road when it comes, or since the pandemic. I believe definitely that a lot of things and new habits have been formed, and that the new reality is here to stay. If we look a little bit deeper into what this actually means from a consumer behavior perspective, I think there are 3 very important elements. First of all, the overarching theme is that people are more aware of their own health. And I believe that over 2/3 of the people since COVID have been paying more attention to their own health, which is also not from an internal perspective, but also from an external perspective, being more aware around the fact that sustainability is becoming more and a higher topic on their own personal agenda. The numbers also prove this, right? So 70 to 85% of consumers expect to keep on using digital apps, digital exercise and environments when it comes to wellness. Looking into sustainability, already 2/3 of the people actually is mentioning, this is McKinsey research, but they're mentioning that sustainability and sustainability aspects is actually a very important reason to purchase products. I will dive into a little bit deeper into this later in the slides. And then the last is the way how people shop. Sports and activewear is actually, when it comes to transactional, e-commerce is almost half of the transactions. However, stores have been opening up in the last year. And so basically physical and digital environments need to reinvent themselves, also opening up for more new innovative store formats. What this actually means is that it also has shown, and you see a reflection in the year-on-year growth. What we see over here is the growth of sales in general between sports apparel. It shows that sporting apparel is in the leading categories, so to say. The global sports market is expected to completely recover by the end of this year. However, this is a research from earlier in 2022. However, the economic situation and a high inflationary situation currently can disrupt, of course, these expectations. But as it seems right now is that the whole industry, activewear and sports, is growing towards almost $500 million size in terms of dollars by 2025. As mentioned, e-commerce has been growing rapidly in the last 2.5 years. Logically, this won't come as a surprise. Almost half of the transactions are being done through e-commerce. Next to pet supplies and cosmetics, sporting apparel is in the top 3 of categories when it comes to e-commerce transactions. Expectations is that this will stay for the forthcoming future, which leaves, of course, another 55% where there probably will be a new mix of different types of channels combined with physical retail, live streaming, etc. When we look from a sustainability perspective, consumer focus was already on sustainability pre-COVID. However, it's in an upward trend. And what we see over here is that 65% of consumers actually they plan to purchase more durable items. 71% is expected to hold on their belongings for a longer time. However, the interesting thing is that there's still a gap between the intention to buy more sustainable products and their actual purchase behavior. This has various reasons. There's a concern around greenwashing. Buying more sustainable products also means picking certain alternatives, and therefore people need to change their habits, which from a natural perspective is more challenging to do. And last but not least, there is an unwillingness to pay extra for sustainable products. Given the economic situation where the world is heading towards and the inflationary environment, this is definitely something that can, of course, impact the purchase of sustainable products. The pandemic also fostered a strong sense to belong more towards communities or digital communities. What we see over here is the performance of Strava, and Strava is a running and cycling app. As you can see, since COVID was introduced, Strava has been growing rapidly, almost towards 100 million users in total by this year. They are adding 2 million users every single month, produce around 20 billion kilometers a year. And yeah, this clearly shows that a digital community is definitely a very important aspect. And Strava is just, of course, one representation. Also due to the fact that especially individual sports have been growing rapidly in the last 2 years. But the sense of belonging to a community or digital community is definitely a trend to watch and is extremely important moving forward in the next few years. Other than that, physical retail, it needs to reinvent themselves. E-commerce has been growing quickly. Stores have been opening up last year, and there has been, of course, a strong recovery. That, of course, also shows that there is still a lot of potential, and consumers are enthusiastic about getting back to the high street again. So this opens up possibilities for innovative store formats, a community outreach, and new unique shopping experience. What we see over here is Puma, and of course I would like to hear from Miriam later on what her experience is and how they see this from a perspective of Puma. Another very important trend that we've been seeing is a leap forward and an accelerating shift towards direct-to-consumer. Also due to community development, many companies switch from wholesale to a more omni-channel or D2C distribution model. What we see over here is the unbundling of Nike and specifically their whole ecosystem and tool stack that they actually have in place in order to facilitate a D2C strategy. This clearly shows that it shouldn't be taken lightly what the impact actually is of choosing such a strategy. It's not only the larger brands, we also see a lot of newcomers in the space that are directly working towards a D2C strategy, such as Gymshark, US Roka, or Maya from Asia. They're also basically focusing on a D2C strategy from the start, leveraging community capabilities of the D2C channels. Well, besides shifting consumer behavior, another big trend currently happening is the shift towards Web3 or the metaverse, as many people call this. It's still very unclear also for a lot of people in the space what actually the definition of metaverse is. But one thing is very clear is that within the Web3 environment, ownership is moving and shifting towards the user. And this is a trend that is more of a global trend, not only affecting the e-commerce space, but it affects basically a lot of other different trends, such as privacy, where users are becoming more in control of their own data, which in our belief is a very positive development. However, what it means in terms of new business models, it brings a lot of opportunities. However, the Web3 environment is still in a very early stage. Brands are experimenting with this. Nike is already doing their first acquisitions in this space. Adidas is entering the space, coming up with their own NFTs. Puma as well. So a lot of brands in the activewear industry are exploring what this actually means and what the potential is of digital products and how this potentially can bring new opportunities for growth. It's very exciting because it will be interwoven with everything else we do, but again, it's super early. Last but not least, live streaming, extremely popular in Asia, less popular when it comes to the West. However, studies have shown that over 90% of the Gen Z generation already have bought an item when it comes to being influenced by social media or social media influencers. McKinsey has been doing quite a lot of research on the development of live streaming, and one thing which is very clear, or the expectation, is that by 2025, around 10 to 20% of all the transactions will be happening throughout live streaming. So this is definitely a very growing or fast-growing channel for the next few years, and definitely a thing to watch. So again, a lot is happening all at the same time. I think we can conclude that we're definitely in a sort of digital revolution area or era. In short, work-life balance has been changing. Consumer is more aware of sustainability. It's not actually a differentiator anymore, but it's just becoming the norm. We've seen a fast growth of the sports category due to a more focus and awareness of the consumer around health. The consumer wants to belong to a digital community. From an industry perspective, we are moving towards D2C. New technologies are creating new opportunities, new business models, and live streaming is a new channel that is coming to the mix. So all in all, I would say that a lot of things are currently changing. Very keen to hear more about what the experience of our guests is. Adrian, if I can kick off with you, what are the main shifts you have seen within HAT when it comes to all these big trends and changes?
Thanks. I guess for me, the good news is we continue to grow while COVID hit the world, but we just saw the change in the dynamics. So winter sports was a sport that nobody really could take on unless they were local to Austria and Germany. So where we saw a big shift was consumers moving more towards the racket sports, because obviously those were sports that consumers could continue to play. Maybe not doubles, but at least singles. So we saw a huge shift in sales, moving from winter sports into racket sports. So tennis and paddle were really growth areas for us, and we couldn't even keep up with the demands when it came to paddle. I mean, that sport is really taking off now anyway, and it's moving into more markets. So I was encouraged to see that there was still plenty of sales coming in on head.com, but just that shift more to racket sports. We also saw a shift in the community as well. We also have our apps. So we have one is called the Rebels Club app. So whilst people couldn't actually ski, they were still very keen to be involved on the Rebels app. So we were producing a lot of content around fitness, around health. So we saw a lot of people still wanting to be involved in the app, signing up to the app, and getting engaged. So generally, I think that was one trend we saw during COVID. And then now we're out of it. Good news is that consumers are buying skis online, even though it's a very complicated purchase. A ski is also a very big investment for a consumer as well. But I think my focus is, trying to improve the experience for consumers when it comes to buying something like a ski or a snowboard, which comes with a price tag of 1,200, 1,500, sometimes 2,000 euros. So a lot of effort is going into trying to provide lots of good information for consumers, be it top of funnel or lower down the funnel, hopefully when they're on the PDP, to actually get them to buy those products. But I'm certainly starting to debug the myth, because I remember when I started at Head, people said, "No, you can't sell skis online, impossible." But yes, we can, and people are buying skis, not huge numbers, but that's certainly a shift as well. I'm seeing, that consumers are prepared to spend a lot of money on a very technical product, and still buy it on Head as well.
Interesting, very interesting. When we look towards the community aspect and the belonging towards a community, Martin, I believe you have experience with this specifically with Top4Sport. How, as an e-commerce platform, do you create these community aspects, and how do you add them in your offering?
Like for our starting with our Top4 Running banner. Our motto is go faster together. Yeah, so we want to promote also running and spending the time running together. And the way we do is that we facilitate a community of runners around Europe. We create ambassador groups of them, but we also then invite them to run and to participate on running events across Europe. So if you are if some of the audience is a marathon runner, you might see the Top4 Running brand and our flags and our tricots all around the running events in Europe. We've been pretty active in this space, and it's a great also value for our ambassadors and our community to be able to participate in this kind of events. And this again, the situation is different with our Top4 football and the 11 team sports and all the other group sports, where it's by definition a group sport. Yeah, so we want to move deeper into the team as much as possible, which is starting with an individual, but then overflowing to more closer service through our B2B and team sales channels. Yeah, so community aspect is a very, very big thing for us. We have started doing this digitally, and I think there is still a lot of room for improvement. But we made the first steps for sure.
Cool. Miriam, I already briefly mentioned during the slides. Very keen to hear more about reinventing a physical and a digital environment. How does Puma approach this, specifically with all these changing behavior from a consumer perspective? Stores are opening up. How is Puma dealing with this?
So the picture shown before was actually a new opening in New York. So a new flagship store in New York on 5th Avenue. With lots of great experience for our consumers. So this basically the strategy of Puma to make the stores interactive, but they'd be like simulators for a motorsport race, which is also based here in our Herzogenaurach store, is a great way to connect with the sports and with the consumer and provide them an experience. On the other hand side, we're also trying to connect the different channels basically, so online and offline, to give the consumer the opportunity to also connect with our to have availability opportunity to shop styles online in the store, for instance, and also providing like inspiration, what's happening in the social community. We have some social screens in the store to show off like what are the outfits which are available. So to really make the shopping experience more broader and connect the different channels for our consumers.
Thank you. There's a very specific piece that I want to highlight during this webinar, and that's actually the privacy revolution. In our opinion, it's still underestimated by many, but the impact it will have on the whole industry is substantial. We're moving towards a new reality, and the question is a little bit, of course, what does this mean? In our opinion, the privacy change is currently not only being driven by the government, but we see really industry leaders taking the first steps towards more transparency. Of course, Apple has made their first steps into this, especially with the update of iOS 14. Basically, they're taking on the battle with Meta and Google around personalized ads. But it also, from a Google perspective, it means that within 14 months, third-party cookies will be completely phased out. And this has, of course, a pretty important impact, so to say, because marketers need to have different ways, or need to look for different ways on making sure that they still can individualize an experience for the user without making use of any tracking behavior anymore. And therefore, it opens up, in our opinion, the potential of what we call zero-party data and first-party data, which I will call later and explain a little bit about what it is. But in its essence, it's that we're moving, and this is basically the shift, that we're moving away from what we call a surveillance era, right? And this means that we are transitioning from called inferred data, where an individual is actually being tracked on their needs and their activity and their behaviors, but without even being aware of the fact that this is happening, which is currently in the current stage of where we are. And this is moving towards declared data. And declared data basically means that the user is actually aware and is proactively providing his or her preferences in order to let the brand know what they are looking for, what they actually need, and what their preferences are. If we look from a data collection perspective, inferred data is closely tied to third-party data, where a company or a brand actually is deciding on the whole purpose of this data set without the user actually knowing that he is the subject, and where the transition is happening to first and zero-party data, where the user is completely in control. If we connect this also to one of the other trends that is currently happening with regards to Web3, is that data as on its own already has a certain value. And with new technologies opening up and new business models, we potentially can foresee a future where this data is actually being traded from a user perspective. However, that's quite, in our opinion, far ahead. However, the user control is definitely something that is happening already right now. If we look towards zero-party data, personally, I think how Forrester claims this is a strong statement. Data that a customer intentionally and proactively shares with a brand. It can include preference, sender data, purchase intentions, personal context, and how the individual wants the brand to recognize her. E-consultancy is already doing quite a lot of research, and what they have seen is that first-party and zero-party data are the favored methods. More than half, 53% of marketers with a good understanding of the crackdown say their company is considering first-party data as an alternative means of measurement, while just under half of 49% is considering zero-party data. This is actually a pretty important trend. We see a digital transition from company control towards user privacy control, a phase out of third-party data, and a very strong focus on first and zero-party data. Martin, what do you think? What the impact will be of this privacy revolution on the digital landscape, and maybe specifically for Top4Sport?
Yeah, so it's a big change. I think we all are aware of this, and each change hurts because we got used to doing things some way, and now we have to think of doing it differently. But we also see it as a huge opportunity to get to know our customers better, and actually be the ones doing this learning and be the ones in control of the data and doing it with respect to the privacy of our customers. So we already started working towards this opportunity, and if you think about it, just what you know about your customers from their orders. Yeah, there's so much you can learn based on that. And I think this falls into the bracket of first-party data, where as a cross-brand retailer, as an authenticator on the market, we can know so much just from the orders. Yeah, we can know the product affinity, we can know the brand affinity. Maybe I can share a little bit of what we found out. Not a big part of our business is nutrition retail that we sell, sports nutrition. It doesn't constitute not even 1% of our revenue, but we found out that the people who, or the customers who purchase nutrition, are their CLV, their customer lifetime value, is multiple the times of the average customer lifetime value of the people who don't purchase nutrition. And all these kind of learnings you can create just based on the data from the orders. Yeah, it doesn't mean that nutrition would be increasing this CLV so much, but it just signals that the people who are buying the nutrition tend to be more serious about the sport, and they tend to continue their purchases on and on and on, because if they run heavily, they need to repurchase their running shoes, let's say every 6 to 9 months. So, and we are just, I think, in the beginning of this journey. I think it's a very interesting journey. And there can be many ways to learn. Also, we are launching a new loyalty program soon. It should be coming up any day now. Hopefully, we can make it before the season. And there we do something you mentioned, Roger, as in trading our learnings about the customer for some points in the membership system where they can advance. So that if they want to share some information about themselves, things we don't know from other sources, such as how often do they run, if I continue with the running example, if they run in groups or not, if they run in the forest or on the road, if they participate in professional or semi-professional events, this information can be given us, and in exchange, the customers can receive some points. So, but I think it's important to keep in mind the end game or the goal for this, because you can go really crazy and collect all the different types of data, and you can get lost in the data collection, because of course data collection is expensive and can be a distraction if you're collecting data which you don't need. So for us, the thinking about this is we also operate a couple of brick and mortar stores. They don't constitute a big part of our total revenue, but we can see that in these brick and mortar stores, if we would calculate some conversion ratio, this conversion ratio would be for sure in double digits. Yeah, because our colleagues in the stores do a very good job. Compare this to our conversion ratio on the e-com, in the e-shops, which is around 2%. Yeah, it varies across the countries, of course, but the average could be around 2% at the moment. So the thinking is, how can we use first and zero-party data to evolve our e-commerce platform to go closer in the conversion ratios to what we can have, or what we are already achieving in the brick and mortar stores? Because already in the beginning of the presentation, Roger, you mentioned this movement back and forward between the brick and mortar and digital. And if you compare these two sales channels, what brick and mortar has and can have is the personal touch. And if the customer comes more often, we can know about him or her and tailor the offering and guide him to where the customer needs to go. And on the other side, there's the digital, which struggles with this at the moment, and there's a lot of room for improvement, but the benefit of it is the scale. So if we are able to somehow move this personalization and sales assistance and enhanced service to digital, I think that's a way to go. And we often think about how e-commerce experience will look like in 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be clicking in categories and struggling with search. I think it's going to be something very different, but we are looking forward to finding out.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's specifically what you're mentioning with regards to loyalty. I think this is a very important aspect indeed, not to forget, even more with the economic situation that we're heading into, where customer acquisition will become more expensive, and so relying on an already established relationship is even more important. Second to that, I believe that also zero-party data is really helping expand on this, given the fact that if people provide proactively their preferences, this can be used within a loyalty environment, right? And this is also about getting your customers better, know what they find important, and connecting the dots between those two. Thanks for that. Adrian, how are you approaching this, and what's ahead? How does head prepare for what's coming?
Yeah, great. I'm glad that no one on our head legal team is on the call today. Obviously, they would be all over me because they're very nervous about these changes. And as we're global, we have to be very, very careful and make sure that we follow the correct guidelines. So it is something that we're discussing regularly. And as I mentioned, legal are very, very close to this as well. And that's why I think I'm certainly within my team, making a big effort to shift then towards first party and zero party data. And I'm glad that loyalty came up, because that's also now going to become a very important strategy for us. So just as Martin said that he's working on a loyalty program, we're doing exactly the same at Head. And we hope to be able to launch phase 1 before the end of the year. So we're doing a crawl, a walk, and a run approach. But basically for us, loyalty is a really important strategy. And it's about really getting closer to our consumers, because we know that our consumers love the brands, they love to ski, they love to play tennis. They connect with our athletes, be it on social media or when they're watching a tennis event, the US Open or the Australian Open. So it's very important that we believe that this is an important strategy. Another reason why is because we're not able to really compete so much on price on head.com. Typically, we are the most expensive place to find a ski or a boot or a tennis racket. So this is another important strategy for us to be able to give something back to the consumer that will keep them returning to head.com. So currency is points are going to be the new currency for us, certainly in phase 1. And then another part of loyalty is something that money can't buy. So something that is unique for on Head. So that could be something like attending a ski event. So this weekend we have the opening of the ski season in Solden in Austria. So that's something that consumers would want to have access to, and something that's unique for them. It could be access to a tennis event like Wimbledon or the Australian Open. But we believe that that's an important connection that we can build with our consumers as well. So absolutely, we know that to win in this game, we need to connect with our consumers and get closer to them. So we're building these kind of customer cards in Service Cloud, which is part of Salesforce. So we really start to understand the sporting habits of our consumers. Are they a tennis player that plays once a week? Do they play in competitions? And then the more we know about those consumers, the better relationship we can have with them as well. And that will give us an opportunity to cross-sell and upsell products. So if we know that they're a tennis player and they're playing regularly, obviously we want to make sure they have balls, and then give them an opportunity to buy tennis balls, and maybe give them some incentives when it comes to buying tennis balls, because we know that's something that is used often. But that's very much going to be a big part of our strategy for Heads in 23 and beyond. And then guided selling is also a part of that as well, but perhaps we'll come to that later.
Thanks. Some great developments going on in that area, I believe. Miriam, anything that you would like to add from your end, how Puma is approaching this privacy revolution?
So of course, data privacy is like the most important for us as a brand like Puma. So we put that, of course, in first position. I think a lot was already mentioned. So I think customer relationship management and loyalty programs will become more and more important, and will get a bigger stage basically within the industry. So same actually for Puma, as the customer needs are basically our highest priority, and we want to basically also cover the needs from our customers, and develop products that face those problems, whether it be period underwear or modest activewear, to really solve the problems of our consumers. And for that, we simply need to know our Puma family and their needs. And even though the GDPR rules and the current situation of third-party cookies will make it more difficult to stay connected, first-party cookies, zero-party data will basically, we will try to cover that void with that. On the other hand side, of course, we have loyalty programs, but also I think identity-based offers, for instance, student programs or similar, will just like also fit very well into this strategy. Next to that, I think we will talk about that in a second, is guided selling, of course. The product offer is getting bigger and bigger also for Puma. For instance, we recently launched our new seasons line with, of course, a lot of new technology features where we help already on the PLP with the consumer in providing him some data around the product and guiding him through our offer basically. And I think first-party zero-party data will also help your product finders to make it easier for the customer to find the product.
Thank you.
Exactly.
I think this you already covered indeed a few of the directions. I think we can conclude that, of course, a lot is changing, just being covered of the privacy environment, but also overarching all the major big shifts that are currently happening, not only specifically for the activewear space, but for the whole e-commerce as a whole. What I think it's impacting a lot, but it's also providing a lot of opportunities. And where we see the opportunity in, of course, we are more of the, this is more our domain, but discovery and merchandising and search there's a lot of potential to be found in this area. So I would like to cover a few of the examples, and then of course hear a little bit more about what the experience is of our guests in this specific area. Search is moving from towards a new generation, and we call this privacy first search. What does that mean? It means that we're not going to track the user anymore in terms of their behavior, but search is moving toward more based on product attributes and context. So instead of using user data, the engine combines actually contextual data points, of course, combined with machine learning algorithms, specific business rules, and not a specific user, but more the wisdom of the crowd, so to say. There are already a few established players and fast-growing players in this domain. One of our partners, Empathy, is one of these companies. They have a privacy-first approach in everything they do in terms of company principle. and they've seen some serious traction already amongst the leading brands, not only in the activewear space, but more in general, that as privacy first search is also something that comes as a user demand. However, let's say if you're looking for running shoes, then search in general might not do the trick, because you need a little bit more specifics and a little bit more information to come up with the possible recommendation. Hence, that's where a product finder comes into play. A product finder is a guided selling solution, is a great example of collecting zero-party data, as the user proactively shares his preferences, and based on the preferences, in this specific case, Top4Running is able to give a very clear recommendation, not one or multiple recommendations. One actually is possible. The reason why this works very well is one of the key challenges still in e-commerce is choice overload. If I'm looking for running shoes, I have an amount of possibilities when it comes to choice. I need to be guided, and therefore Product Finder is actually a great solution out of this. And then we have Vetted, and Vetted is a product search engine from the States. What's interesting about Vetted is that they focus on consumer needs. So what makes them different is that their facet and filtering is not so much based on just static or technical product data, but it's actually based on really understanding what users find important. And the way how they've collected this data set is by sifting through a vast amount of product reviews, grasping the consumer needs out of these reviews, and also connecting them immediately to the right type of products. What it eventually results in is that, let's say when you're looking for running shoes, traditionally you can filter on a certain technical aspect as a heel drop. Only for the majority of the consumers, that's not very clear. What Vetted does different is that they focus and filter on through a language that is actually understandable and relatable for a person. Let's say I have bad knees and I also have flat feet, then still I'm able to get a recommendation that actually fits my need as a consumer. It's a B2C concept. However, they have some serious traction. I believe they recently raised a 40 million funding round, so probably we will hear more of them in the next few years to come. Well, in all of this, what the key takeaway is that we're actually shifting away from just collecting user data or personal identifiable information such as gender and the age and location towards collecting and enriching actually the product data set. So product metadata is how we call this, is becoming more and more important, and therefore, in our opinion, also lies the opportunity. As if you have a very strong product data set, this significantly improves your search performance. It significantly improves your recommendations of the products, and therefore you are able to give and help and individualize the experience in a very strong way, but without making sure that you cross the line when it comes to personal data. So all in all, we believe some very important trends, but again, very keen to hear more about from our guest what the experience is. And maybe when it comes to search, Miriam, can you tell a little bit about how you approach this with Puma?
So as just mentioned, yeah, we're using the data what our customers are actually searching for. So I think we're feeding a lot of information back when it comes to customers actually looking for slippers. However, we are providing sliders on top. Does it maybe make sense to rename it in the product data to the words and the language actually our customers use. So this is just an easy example. So really to reflect the language our consumers use and what they expect from it, basically, from our products, to learn from conversion rates when customers are looking for products. Is it actually relevant product we are providing to them, is basically key. As mentioned before, I think consumers, especially online, and this is still a place like whereas the stores with a limited range of products definitely sometimes benefit from, in combination with a really good sales assistance in the stores. We have a broader range, which is an advantage to fit different needs. However, it can be overwhelming, and especially in search, fitting the results have to fit the requests, the queries of the consumer, as well as the filter opportunities need to be up to date and also in the language of the consumer. And this is something Puma is working highly on, basically.
Thank you. And when it comes to guided selling and specifically product finders, Martin, I believe you have tested and tried various ways with the product finder. What's your experience, and what are your learnings?
Learnings, as you were talking in your part, and also before when I saw the Nike slide with all the different solutions they are using, we believe it's very important to manage all the data and all the functionalities, preferably automatically, from a central place, some data warehouse or somewhere where we control the inputs. I can give an example. Apart from using Crowbox for the shoe finders for Top4 Running, we are also using a Logisbox solution for search. It's also an external solution which we have implemented. And then you can also see the list of our products on the PLP, as usual. And it's logical that we would want the results of the shoe finder, the results of the external search, and the PLP for the same query, let's say running shoes, to be the same. But to be able to do this, we have to control the order on our data. We wouldn't be, if we would let each of these platforms do it themselves, we would come up with different results. We are moving away from being consistent, and we are sending not consistent messages to the customer, which is never good. We change this order every day based on some internal metrics and also demand we take from Google Ads. And so it's very important for us to be able to drive the functionality of these external solutions ourselves and automatically. To do something manually for us with 100 eShops is not really a possibility. And coming back to the slide from Nike, for all these different solutions, I remember they were using Bloomreach for marketing automation and emailing. We also use Bloomreach. A couple of others I knew. We always try to send the platforms our data to drive them this way, rather than letting all the solutions, if they are internal, implemented on our eShops, or if there are external communication tools, to make these decisions themselves. So they don't work as a silo, but rather they are being managed and controlled by us and by our own strategy and our own decisions. Maybe that's my mind in the last section.
Adrian, anything you would like to add from your end when it comes to head and guided selling?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So head.com is both a brand site and a brand store. And over 60% of our traffic is coming from organic and direct. So a lot of our traffic is coming very often from higher up in the funnel. So for us, guided selling is also about offering a service to our consumers. Obviously, I love to sell, but I also know that it's not all about on head.com. It's about creating an experience for our consumers. And hopefully, they come back again, and maybe one day they buy something. So guided selling is an important strategy for us. We have complex products, and most recently we started guided selling in paddle tennis. Now that's a hot sport right now. Everybody wants to play paddle. It's big in Holland. It's already very big in Spain and Italy, and it's getting bigger in the UK and spreading into more markets. And we have 17 different paddle rackets. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but every racket has a different functional, technical specification behind it. And if you're a beginner, if you're someone who plays regularly or even advanced, you need help when it comes to finding the right racket. So for us, guided selling in paddle is a really important service to our consumers, and we've put it, we're going out with some pushing on social media. We're making consumers aware of it in our newsletter. We've got a little tab on the side of our paddle pages on head.com called Paddle Finder, so consumers can click on that and engage with it. So it's definitely, we're learning, and consumers are using it. And we also find it useful because there's a lot of data that we're able to collect, in terms of which countries consumers are using the Paddle Finder. What's the success rate like from when they start the Paddle Finder until they actually get their racket at the end of it. And also our product team back at headquarters, they also like the data as well, because the only place to, in terms of direct to consumer, head.com, we don't have our own stores like Puma. So not a lot of data comes back to our product teams. So also that getting that information on, which rackets consumers are getting back in their search results is also going back to our product teams. And that's also helping them refine and improve future rackets that we produce. So yeah, guided selling is an important strategy for us. And it's not just on paddle. We're looking at it for skis and also for tennis as well.
Interesting. I am watching the time. I see that we're already almost full of an hour. We're also at the end of the webinar for today. I do think it makes sense maybe to give the opportunity for people in the audience. If there are any questions for the guests, you're able to provide them right now. So maybe we can quickly have a few additional minutes to answer those questions. Is there anyone who would like to know more?
That's because we've done such a good job, Roger. We don't need questions. We've done it all.
I see someone typing. From Oscar, what is the future of the brick and mortar experience? Are your brands veering more towards the phygital or investing more in e-commerce instead? I'm not sure for who the question is. Is this maybe something for Miriam you potentially could answer?
So yeah, I just mentioned that, but I think it's actually the same for e-commerce, but also for the stores. The experience to stay connected with our consumer is equally important for both channels. I think the store, however, still provides a great opportunity to connect with our consumer and also give space to dive into the world of Puma in real life as well. Because, for instance, meet and greets, the personal connection with a person is still not replaceable by technology. And I'm very strongly of that opinion. Being connected to the consumer and giving a home to the Puma family is key for us and will stay for sure. However, it is undeniable, especially during the pandemic, that a lot of traffic moved online and e-commerce grew exponentially, as shown before. So I think there is a new role for the stores to provide inspiration, which still cannot 100% be covered by e-commerce, which is, for instance, the haptic, which are the personal connections, and yeah, really diving into the product.
Thank you. Thanks, Oscar. Well, with that, I think we're on a full hour. I see a last accompanying question. Has any of the speakers analyzed the relation between guided selling tools and their effects on return rates? From Claudia.
Good question. Not yet. Ahead. We're still looking in it, but it's a really good point, and it is something we'll definitely be doing.
Same here. Thanks for the idea. We'll for sure look into this. It's a good one. Yeah, and it should be so difficult to put together. Yeah, maybe we can share later what we find out.
Yeah, we'll do a phase 2.
Claudia would like to brainstorm about it, which I think it definitely makes sense. Yeah, with that, I would first of all thank you, Martin, Miriam, Adrian, for sharing your experience and learnings. For the people who have joined, I hope it was an insightful webinar. If you have any additional questions, always feel free to reach out. The webinar will be is recorded, so you can watch and play it if you like. Well, you will hear from us soon, as we will be following through with new webinars to come, specifically in the space. But thank you for joining.